Okay, so today is the day where I start to build the mold for the hardtop. The way I'm going to build the mold is I'm going to do it in two parts, because the whole hardtop itself is about 12 feet by 12.5 feet, which is enormous. We don't have a crane, we don't have the possibility to lift that onto the boat. So I'm going to make it into two parts. So what you saw in the previous video is that we took a template, if you will, of the shape of the roof, because I want it to follow the shape of the roof, so we got the same contour on the hardtop as on the cabin top itself. So I've cut that out. You saw me making the template, or marking the template. So now here I've cut what is going to be my working piece, and if I line that up here, what I'm going to do is I've laid that out, I'll draw around this, and I will cut that out, and that will then leave me the shape of the inside of the female part of the mold. So let's do it. Let's make a lot of different ribs, and now we can start to build the hardtop. So here we have it. This is the first of the ribs which will make the mold. So if you imagine this is the contour here, I will line that with a 1/4 inch MDF that I got. Also the sides, and then these will be lined up. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I need about 8 of them. Strengthened up with some wood on the sides, and then of course filled with epoxy. Well, that was faster, so thanks Lizito for lending me the other saw. Much quicker with the long straight cuts with something like this. Also guys, pro tip, when doing this you're noticing that I'm cutting the same pattern because I need 8 stringers to make the mold. What I suggest is the first one that you make, you mark it with a P, and that's basically your pattern. Always mark from the same pattern. So then by the time I've made 8 of these, which I think I need today, then they should all be the same shape at the end. If you continue on and just do from the one you've just made to the next one, you'll find you'll gradually get a different shape. So always use a pattern, start with the first one, always use the first one to mark up. So the way I've decided to do the frame for the mold itself, I've found 2 nice long pieces of wood, but they're not particularly straight. They've got a slight bow in them. So I'm going to make spacers up. You can see these little blocks that I'm cutting up. I'm going to screw them every 2 feet basically on the pieces of wood on both of those. Having these pieces of wood screwed on either side, one obviously will give me the strength of the mold itself. We have a base. They're also evenly spaced, so when I put the 1/4 inch ply on, my ribs will actually be in the right places. Now that the pieces are on and upright, I can attach the ribs, screwing them pretty much. I'm taking some measurements, but I know I'm going to have to make some adjustments later. But having these little pieces of wood sticking up either side means I can go along, just undo the screw that I've just loosely put in, just to adjust them to get all the heights and everything else correct. Hey, so morning, welcome to day 3. Not that I did too much on day 1 and 2, I only did a couple of hours on each day because we had prior commitments for lunch and whatnot. But I just want to show you how we're going along. So this morning what I've done is I've finished screwing everything together. So these are basically the ribs of the mold. Inside the mold itself I'm going to lay the 1/4 inch ply, which will then bend inside it to give a nice flat surface ready to lay the fiberglass. But what I've done this morning is I've straightened up, so I've got the frame here, I've shimmied that up so that I've got it pretty much in level now, and I'm just going to go around and just make sure everything is perfectly aligned. I know it's not, there's a few millimeters here and there that need adjustment. So if you see here, we've just got small adjustments to do because I want the mold to be absolutely perfect. Once I lay the glass in it, there's no going back. It has to be perfect now, otherwise the job just will not turn out right at the end of the day. So yeah, let's get it adjusted and then start filling her up with the plywood, ready to lay some glass.
So Davy has just gone to town this morning. Yesterday afternoon we did try and go to the hardware store, but it was closed because it was a Sunday. So he's going in early this morning to try and get a spirit level for the mold, so he can finish off that part of it. So I'm staying here, gonna do some tidying up of the house a little bit, and I'll do a little bit of yoga, and then when he comes back we'll be ready to go and build the mold. Well, maybe finish the mold. We'll see.
So the mold is all level. I started to lay out the 1/4 inch ply, or it's actually an MDF actually, inside. So I started to screw those down. Then I'm going to fill the insides here along, fill the ends. After that I'll start being able to prepare it to lay the glass inside it. It's a long process, it's hard work, but starting to make progress. And that, guys, is how you build the mold. Finito. Countersinking the screws. Got a countersink bit. So countersink the screws so that they don't. So then afterwards I'll put a little bit of filler over here, a bit of sanding, and they will be nice and flat. Otherwise you're going to get marks of all of the screws.
Don't want that, do we?
Nope.
So just because I think it's kind of interesting, this is how we get water to the boat. So when we order water, we'll get like 50 to 70 gallons of water. So I'll bring either 10 or 15 of these big 5-gallon jugs, and I'll put them right into our water tanks. So it's like using bottled water to shower. But at least we know it's good water and we can drink it, and it's all good. It's gonna be a huge hardtop.
So this morning I have, obviously the mold is finished. What I've done is I've rolled out some thinned epoxy, so epoxy with a little bit of acetone in it, just into the mold itself, so you see it's got a nice sheen on it now. Also starting to go over all my edges, bit of fairing filler, and starting also to do the fillets. So the fillets in the side here, because you don't want to do fiberglassing at a 90-degree angle, you want a slight curve on it. Also that's how you want the finish on the boat. So started working on some of that. I'm going to let it dry for a little bit now, and then I'm going to come back to it in a couple of hours, a bit of sanding, and do the rest of the fillets. Alrighty, so mold is pretty good to go. What I've just been working on is the fillets. So you see here I've rounded the edge. I've just been round and sanded everything with a machine and also with hand sanding. So the whole way round we have this beveled edge. And that is because you don't want to lay fiberglass into a 90-degree angle and make it also easier to get it out of the mold. So today's mission is there's a few bits I'm not quite happy with. This corner here, for example, it's still a bit lumpy. It's all about the preparation. Another pro tip for you, it's all in the prep. The more time you spend on the mold, the better result it's going to be at the end. Less filling and sanding afterwards. So I think what we're going to do is take a break and come back and do some more touch-ups. Alright, so that's as good as I can get it for the next couple of hours. I have done all the sanding, I've gone back around, I've cleaned it up with acetone, and all the little areas that weren't perfect, I've touched them up just with a little bit more. These, for example. So it's just going to take a light sanding tomorrow before I'll then be ready to give it a thorough clean with acetone, and at which point then I will put the, it's like a wax basically, a mold release inside it, and we'll start putting the glass on it tomorrow. I've actually been very, very lucky that here at Puerto Blanco Marina, Los Velos is the restaurant, and here's the marina. They've actually lent me this space. So they've allowed me to use the boss's garage where they normally keep the car. So a big thank you and a big shout out to Puerto Blanco Marina. Thank you so much for the help. Okay, so I've now got the mold to the position where I need to put in a mold release agent. So that once I laid the fiberglass in there, I'll actually better pop it out afterwards. It's not just going to be all joined as one solid unit. I need to reuse this mold by flipping it over the other way to make the second half of the roof. Now, here in the Dominican Republic, unfortunately, they don't have the release agent I want. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of an experiment. So I'm going to try 3 different things. I'm going to try a wax, which is basically just car polish wax. I'm going to try this this glue here, which is a bit like PVA glue, if I believe right. I'm not been able to find the exact ingredients, if you will, inside it, but it's an all-purpose hobby glue. I believe that's more like a plastic glue. And I've also got a thinner, which is like an alcohol-based methanol thinner. So I'm going to try the hobby glue on this piece, thinned hobby glue here, and wax here. I'm going to let those dry. Then afterwards, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a bit of fiberglass and a bit of matting. I'm going to stick them down and let them dry overnight. That then in the morning will tell me which patch has stuck to the wood and which has not. Okay, so I've got my 3 surfaces and my test. 3 bits of matting. So I'm just going to mix up a little bit of resin and let's do an experiment.